This is another episode of Talks with Tyler ISD, a podcast about the passionate people who have a heart for students. This podcast is brought to you by Texas Bank and Trust. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Talks with Tyler ISD. I'm your host, Jennifer Hines, and today we are going to be talking about Birdwell Dual Language Immersion School. And with us today is Katie Gerety. She is one of the parents who you actually have two children. Two of your four are currently at Birdwell right now. Yes. Tell us a little bit about your family and how you ended up at Birdwell.
Well, we have a pretty big family. We have 4 kiddos, and we're kind of spread out throughout the district. But when we originally we were living in the Dominican Republic, and when we moved back, both my husband and I knew that we wanted our kids to be bilingual. So when we moved back, we had 1 kid. And so I didn't realize, I grew up here in Tyler, and there wasn't dual language when I grew up. And so when I heard that there was a dual language program, I was really excited, and I was even more excited that it was public and that it wasn't something that we had to pay for.
Yes.
I just feel like that is awesome, that it's so accessible to the public people, and that we don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars just so our kids can know
can have that kind of program available to them, because it is one of the very few programs, especially here in East Texas, that you could even have access to, which is amazing. And I know it means a lot to you and your husband James, because y'all are both bilingual. I mean, y'all, tell me a little bit about that, because I know people that are listening would love to hear. You traveled the world, and y'all have been looking at dual language programs all around the world and the United States.
Yeah, so it's funny because, you know, when you get married, you have all these qualities that you want in a husband. I didn't really care about Spanish until I went to college, and that is really where I learned Spanish, and I studied abroad to learn it. I lived in Colombia for a while, just serving with the International Mission Board, and I just fell in love with the language and the culture and the people. And so when I came back, I was finishing off my degree at UT Austin, I minored in Spanish, and I became a bilingual teacher myself. So then when I met my husband, he was not fluent in Spanish, but he does have a strange knack kind of for picking it up, more on the slang side, I would say, because he was a soccer player. But about a year into our marriage, we ended up moving abroad to the Dominican Republic, and he picked it up so fast. And so when we did move back, we were like, man, we want our kids to know Spanish. But everything that you read about teaching your kids Spanish is that, like, one parent really has to stick to one language and the other one has to stick to the other. And neither one of us were really willing to give up our heart language, I guess, if that makes sense, because we wanted to make sure they understood when it came down to, like, discipline and helping them, that they really understood what was happening. And so when we heard about Birdwell, we were like, perfect. Like, we can reinforce it at home for sure, and we can help with homework. Although I do want to say, just because you don't know Spanish doesn't mean that you can't send your kid to Birdwell. We have a ton of parents there that don't speak any Spanish.
Yes, they're like, okay, I can't support at home, but so you don't have to have, that is really important for a parent to know, is that, because I spoke French, but I mean, I would love for my kids to be able to speak multiple languages, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing too, is like, once you have a second language, learning a 3rd, 4th, 5th language is so much easier once you do that. But, you know, all the studies show that 5 and below, those are the critical years for learning a second language, or at least like expanding upon language at those early years.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that, as parents are listening to this podcast, knowing that the applications for Birdwell will be opening on January 1st. You don't have to speak Spanish. Your kids don't have to speak Spanish, but really for those pre-K, maybe even K and possibly first, still could get into the program if they don't have any of that background.
Yes. Absolutely. And there's a ton of support throughout the school. And, you know, we have a lot of people in the community that want to tutor in those areas. And I think that Birdwell has a large platform there to really expand upon, you know, offering tutoring to parents in both English and Spanish to bridge that gap between parents and kids, you know. I think that would be amazing. And so, I mean, everything is a slow change. Everything kind of like happens slowly, but it has been a really fun program to be a part of. I will say, if you have really little kids, I do encourage you to put them in pre-K if you can.
Yeah.
Both of our girls that go there, one did not do pre-K, one did pre-K. The oldest one swears up and down that she has struggled more
because she didn't go to pre-K.
But reality is she's not struggling at all. She just is a perfectionist, and she thinks that getting a 99 is failing. So.
Oh, that's funny. Well, hey, you've got a striver there.
Yes.
I love it. So tell us a little bit about where they are in their journey, because Birdwell is pre-K all the way through 8th grade. You do want to make sure that when you're thinking about this program that you're going to commit to that full program, because they do kind of start more heavy in one language and then they kind of do both languages, and it's important, otherwise it can kind of mess with their learning a little bit if they don't complete it.
Right. So to my understanding, they still accept kids past 3rd, 4th grade.
They do.
They do have to test into it, though, because we don't want to set kids up for failure.
Correct.
To come in and be like, man, I'm so behind, and just really knock their self-confidence down. But yes, so let me kind of touch on the point of the difference between a bilingual school and a dual language school.
Yes, that's very important to know the difference.
Because we have schools here in the TISD that have bilingual programs. Correct. And I was a bilingual teacher, so I was a part of a bilingual program, and to be honest, I'm not really sure which well, I can't think of the word right now, whatever it is that TISD follows, but the Gomez and Gomez is a pretty common one that districts have, and that is like an early exiting program for a bilingual. So when I say early exiting, I mean, so I was a pre-K teacher, so I would have students come in, and all of my kids spoke only Spanish when they came into my classroom.
So you're really trying to teach them
so
English.
I spoke Spanish with them, but I was really weaning them off of the Spanish and giving them that language support, but we were teaching English.
Yes.
And then some programs are different, some districts are different, but the point of it was to wean them off of it so that in 2nd grade, after 2nd grade, they exit out of having a lot of language support, and we're just going into like English. But the whole time we've just been learning English academically.
The normal track of a regular student, getting them acclimated. Whereas dual language immersion, it really is immersion of both languages, which is really important because it's teaching both languages in different subjects all the way through. So there is that support.
So the point of the bilingual is just to give them support, but not necessarily to make them biliterate, where they know how to read, write, and speak in both languages. Whereas a dual language program, we're wanting our students to be biliterate and bilingual. And so
it's the whole thing.
It's the whole thing. And so I have a kiddo in kindergarten. When she started in pre-K, the whole day is in Spanish. They do, I think they did math and English. But the whole day, I mean, every conversation they have with the teacher is in Spanish. I mean, I have a little blonde hair, blue eyed girl, and she was coming home. She's in kindergarten, and she's almost fluent in Spanish, just speaking it, because that's what she's around all day
and
long.
they absorb it at that age. They definitely say when they're younger, they have the brain capacity that is easier for them to pick up languages faster. So there's a benefit to starting so young.
Yeah, for sure. And then when they go out on the playground, they have a lot of friends who are Mexican, or some are from Spain, or some are from Colombia. It's so multicultural there. Multicultural within the Spanish community too, but they have all the different cultures. They go on the playground and they're teaching each other their languages, because Ellie's talking to them in English and they're talking to her in Spanish, and then before you know it, it's just
they're learning off of each other, which is even better,
and
because
so
it's not just
really
the classroom.
Is immersion as what it should be, is like I'm having to learn it, and then so the goal of the dual language program is biliterate, bilingual, bicultural, so that they understand people and the language and the academics of it all.
And it's neat for them to know that there is a world outside of Tyler, outside of Texas, outside of the United States, that, knowing that there are all these other countries out there that speak Spanish in some form. I know it changes from country to country a little bit, especially when it comes to some of the slang, that sort of thing, but it's kind of like English. I mean, they speak in Britain, and over there in Europe, they have some countries that speak English,
different dialects, and
it's different words mean different things, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, different dialects. Yes, one of my daughters has a teacher from Colombia, a teacher from Spain, and a teacher from Mexico, and so they have all the different dialects. They have the lisp from the Andalusian area of Spain, and so they even hear the difference.
Yes,
and they're picking up on all of it. And so it's really neat to watch them come home and like even talk to each other in Spanish sometimes. And my husband and I used to speak Spanish in front of our kids so that they couldn't understand us.
Now you can't do
And
that anymore.
time has passed. Like, we can't do that. We're like, man, we're gonna have to come up with another language or something.
Time for y'all to learn that third language.
Too tired.
So tell me a little bit about why y'all decided on a dual language program. What was it as a parent that you felt was extremely important when you look at your child's educational career and opportunities for them?
We wanted our kids to be able to communicate with more people than just like a set of people, especially in Texas. You know, we have so many Hispanic cultures in Texas already, which is so wonderful, but we just wanted them to be able to have access to and to be able to communicate and to be able to serve and to be able to influence people outside of their own culture. And so that was mainly our thought was, you know, we went to the Dominican Republic so that we could serve there and so that we could help there and then come back and be able to serve. And it has helped us so much too. Also just career-wise,
it does open so many doors.
Being able to say that you're bilingual, truly bilingual, not like I understand it but can't speak it, but like truly bilingual, can read, write, do the whole thing is such a thing. Like that's a huge thing.
It is. It absolutely is. Absolutely. It will be something that sets your children apart from all of the other applicants out there when it comes to job searching or even when it comes to applying for college. One of the things that I love about the Birdwell program is it does go through 8th grade, but you have the opportunity to earn high school credits. Not only in Spanish, but you also have the opportunity to earn credits for CTE, which is Career and Technical Education. They can go ahead and start earning some of those credits before they even get to high school. And then if they continue with the Spanish all the way through, they have the opportunity to learn or to obtain their seal of biliteracy, which is even more impressive when it comes to those college applications and setting yourself apart among the big sea of everybody that's trying to apply. So a great opportunity there.
Yeah, and and this is not to knock any Spanish class in high school or anything like that, but like that's a late age to start a second language. And I struggled. I mean, when I left high school, I think I knew the conjugation song. And so I was like, I'm done with the second language. I did it. I made it through all three.
I got it. I'm done. Check.
Yes. And then I get to college, and I remember my first day in a Spanish class. She was like, "This will be the last day that I speak English in this class." And we were like, "Okay." You know what? I learned so much from that. And so I just think that like our kids are gonna finish through 8th grade, and then high school Spanish is going to be nothing to them if they even have to take it, because I think they like pass those courses throughout because they've had to speak it so much. They know all the verbs, they know how to do all that stuff already because they're already biliterate. We're not having to learn grammar newly, and
it's already ingrained. If anything, they can go ahead and start learning a third language if they would like to, which is nice.
Well, if you think about it, for us speaking English, like we have to go through English classes whenever we're in elementary school. We have to learn the grammar, what's a noun, what's a pronoun, all of those things. Well, they're already learning those things, and those are the things that I started learning in high school in Spanish because we didn't take Spanish early, and that's okay.
Now it's a different age now, and it's an amazing opportunity for our children, even though it wasn't necessarily an opportunity for us growing up. You could see the benefit of it for sure.
And I think people saw that it was a benefit, and so now there is this program that's open to everyone that wants to do it, and
I think that's incredible. What about culture? You had mentioned culture. All these different cultures are represented there. And I know you're on the PTA at Birdwell, which is also wonderful. Thank you for giving your time to the school. What are some of the activities that they do there that you have seen from a parent's perspective that you really enjoy, that you think bring that culture out, where they get to learn about all of these different countries and things going on, celebrations, really kind of embracing that idea?
I think that it's so interesting because we have a kid in Andy Woods, which is an amazing school, and they have all these amazing events, but they're so different.
Yes.
to the ones that are at Birdwell, which is it's just fun for me to see both sides of the coin, you know?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure you've seen it on the news, but like Birdwell has a giant Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
And they take an entire month to talk about all the different things from different countries. Each class has their own country that they're, doing. And so it's a giant month where we have dress up and we have all these like famous people that have come through that have impacted society from it. So that's a really cool one to see.
I know they do Cinco de Mayo.
They do Cinco de Mayo.
They do a lot of different ones.
Yeah, Dia de los Muertos is really big.
Yes.
Like they do, all of those things are celebrated in such a different way because there's so many people there whose their own culture, their home culture celebrates that as well. And so the celebration looks very different than just, I don't want to say it like this, but like than just like me as an American citizen, like trying to celebrate something that I didn't celebrate myself. And so they're really being like inundated with true celebrations.
Like this is how they celebrate. This is why they celebrate. Like, and they're not just celebrating to celebrate. They're learning the history behind it, the meaning behind it, the culture, the traditions. All of the different things.
Yes.
And it really is, it's kind of the whole package. I mean, they're learning all of these different things. They're learning the language, they're learning the different cultures, and all of that, which makes Birdwell such a unique program. You said that you've been all over the world and even the United States looking at these types of programs. What sets Birdwell apart in your mind?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Yeah, we traveled, a friend of mine who is a director of a school in the Dominican Republic, we traveled all over the United States looking at dual language programs or some that were like multiple lingual. And so it was really interesting walking in and seeing kids that would come up to me who were clearly, this was not their culture, and speak Chinese to me or speak, something else that you're like, whoa, like this program is really working. And it's hard to think that you could implement a program and that would work, but it does. So I think that in all the programs that I've seen, what sets this one apart is that like the teachers here are all from that culture. And
they're really learning from somebody that has lived it and experienced it and has firsthand knowledge and really can relate.
And like all those programs had some teachers that were that way too, but they also had teachers who were like myself who know that's my second language. It's not my first culture.
Yes.
And so I think that it's the cultural part of it is what is really neat. And sometimes, to be honest, it is a struggle because there is always going to be a disconnect between two, three different cultures where you don't understand one another, but that's one of the main reasons that we wanted our kids to be in it, was to be able to understand a wider worldview than what we have right in front of us.
Yes.
And then one day they'll be able to travel and see those cultures themselves and understand
and already know it. And already kind of get it when they get there. They've already had it kind of ingrained through their
they'll
EK8
understand
education.
it. They're not going to be so, when I moved to the Dominican Republic, I'm such a type A personality, but I remember being like, oh my gosh, this is where expectations come to die. Like, oh no. Like, nobody follows rules here, nobody does this. But there is a beauty in it too, of like how slow paced everything was and that people were so relational with one another. It took me time though to appreciate that, because I'm like, efficiency, let's do this because our culture is go, go, go.
Yes, strive.
But they're getting a lot of that culture themselves too, where sometimes my kids will be like, it's okay, and I'm like, it's not okay. And so it's good. It's a good balance for our kids to have.
So they're even kind of learning, from what I'm hearing you say, the social emotional part of learning to be like, we're not going to stress out about this. We're going to relax a little bit, and we're going to have that relation part of it, the physical, human, back and forth that we need, that connection and understanding that part of those cultures.
Absolutely. And also just understanding like the nuances and the sarcasm from different cultures has been interesting. It's funny because I say this with all the love in my heart, but like we as a culture tend to be a little more soft and other cultures, and I say this knowing like I have a brother from Russia. I have families from different, and they are so much more abrupt in the way they speak, and it is not ill-intentioned, but when you hear it, you're like,
direct.
Well, that was rude. Like, it wasn't rude to them. And so it's listening to, like, my oldest will come home and be like, well, I know that wasn't their heart.
Yes.
I know that they just meant this and that they were playing. So I'm like, man, how mature are you to be able to see
and to decipher? Yes.
But like,
that's going to help them.
If they hadn't been exposed to it, then they wouldn't know.
And they wouldn't have the understanding, and that will help them, especially when it comes to, inner office, working with teams, all of those relationships that are important that you learn once you get out of high school, get out of college, and you get into the workforce. Learning that's really important,
how to interact
because
with
everybody
people.
does come from different places, different cultures, and so understanding that, I think, is really really important.
I mean, and just interpersonal, relationships, where it's like how to interact with people other than yourself. I mean, it's important for marriage. It's important for like everything. Is to be able to like look beyond yourself and understand and accept somebody for who they are.
Absolutely. Well, what I love about Birdwell, kind of circling back around, applications do open on the 1st of January. As you mentioned, the pre-K, kindergarten, maybe even first, they don't really have to know Spanish. But if they are in some sort of other program, they will take them all the way through if they can test in. So don't let that hold you back if there is some support already there with your child and they already have some sort of a second language with them. Those that are listening right now that might want to apply, they can easily go to tylerisd.org/Birdwell. The applications are there. You can fill them out online. You can print it out and write it, fill it out, the old school way with paper and pen. But it's definitely time for those that are looking at these types of programs to set up a tour, go see the school, put in those applications come January 1st, and make sure that they can have that opportunity to just see if maybe it is a good fit for their family. We have lots of magnet schools that are going to be opening January 1st, so this definitely should be one that's on their list.
Yeah, and let me tell you, the applications go in fast. I remember being
so that's good to know.
I remember being stressed out about it.
Get them in
and
early.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't get it in, but get it in early because every year the application numbers go up.
Yes. Yes. I mean, and I know that they will max out. Yeah.
People didn't know that this was a program, and now it's becoming a thing where people know about it, and so the application numbers are going up. So it's wonderful, but get your application in.
What would you like for parents that are listening right now to know about Birdwell? If you could leave them with anything, what would you want them to know that we maybe haven't covered yet, or to think about?
Okay. Well, I guess from my perspective as a parent, this is our second language coming in. I'll give you a couple different perspectives. The best advice that a parent gave me in my similar situation was like, Katie, your kids, it's going to feel like they're a little bit behind whenever they start. But you need to remember that everything is in their second language, and it is a lot. So if they get a B, or they have a C, like, you praise that, and it is okay, because eventually...
Because they're doing language and the subject.
Language and the subject, and they're doing... And I don't say this to minimize anything that's happening at another school, but, like, I have to have different expectations in my head for this program than I would a different program. And they have accelerated, they have caught up, they have done it, but being a perfectionist myself, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Okay, you have to kind of, and again, that's kind of what I was referring to a little bit earlier in our conversation. It's a commitment. That's one thing that is very important for parents to understand, is that because they're learning the language and the subject, they really do have to commit for that pre-K or kinder through 8th program, because if you only do it for a few years and then you pull them out, they will be a little bit more behind in certain subjects because they're also learning the language. But it does even out and then actually puts them ahead if they complete the whole program.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is very important.
I think you've got to be willing to push through. The first years for us have been a little bit harder, and then it flip-flops. And then as the English starts introducing, then the people whose first language is Spanish, then those years are a little bit harder, and then it all evens out and it comes together. But you've got to be willing to like push through and stick to it and just trust the process, because the administration knows what they're doing, the teachers know what they're doing. There's a lot of study and all sorts of things, research behind what they're doing.
It's a program. They have a plan, and they have a plan for each individual child and getting them exactly where they need to be. And that's the one thing that I think a lot of people may not realize, is that and I think that's important, is you can go in not knowing English, you can go in not knowing Spanish, and you're going to come out on the other end knowing both of them extremely well.
If you stick to it.
If you stick to it, exactly. That's the point to drive home. Stick to it.
There are times when my third grader will spell stuff, and it is so Spanglishy.
It's like combined, and you're like,
why aren't we spelling this right yet? But I'm like, you know what? She'll get there. She's just mixing up the two languages in her head right now, and all the knowledge that she has of English grammar and Spanish phonics and English phonics, they're just mixing.
Yes.
But they will,
and they're absorbing because they're a sponge at this age. But it will even out. She can write
essays in Spanish.
That's incredible.
Like it will all like pan out, and they'll get there. And you just got to be willing to be patient and trust the process.
I love that. Well, Katie, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the parent perspective. I think that's really important when parents are thinking about it, that they know that there's another parent out there that kind of has been through the ropes, showing them the ropes, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So let me tell you, if you join a school like that, I guess with anything, you need to get involved. You need to be plugged in, because when you do start feeling overwhelmed, because you will, I think any parent feels that no matter what program you're in.
Yes.
Because we all want our kids to succeed.
Absolutely.
You need to get plugged in. So whether that's with a PTA or another group of parents, you need to get plugged in so that you have someone who understands what you're going through, but also that y'all are like pushing through together.
Yes, absolutely. And then and those that, especially with the PTA, you have PTA parents from all different grades, so they can tell you what to expect at this stage and that stage.
Yes,
and
I have parents ahead of me that I'm like,
okay, it's a whole tight-knit community. I've got a lot of friends that have children at Birdwell. They've absolutely loved it. I love that so many are seeing the benefits of it. It's almost like a hidden gem. Like some people don't even realize it's out there, and we're like, it's here. Yes. You need to come and see. And it's extremely amazing what they're doing over there. And I'm glad that your two kids are in there and are really enjoying it and absorbing all of that. And you're seeing kind of what you and your husband fell in love with going and doing and serving in other countries, and now you're able to give them the gift of a second language, because it really is a gift for them to be able to succeed once they do graduate from high school. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you again for joining us for this episode of Talks with Tyler ISD. Again, I'm your host, Jennifer Hines. If you would like to know more about all things Tyler ISD, you can always go to our website at tylerisd.org, or you can sign up for our newsletter at get.tylerisd.news, and you will get our external newsletter to learn more about all of the wonderful things that are going on inside of our school district. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Texas Bank and Trust. Subscribe to Talks with Tyler ISD on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Please share this episode with your friends and family.